I have been getting so many emails for the past few weeks demanding the return of Laura Loomer. I am delighted to have Laura back with us. Laura, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. I just got back from the protest at the Smartmatic office in Boca Raton. But I'm, just adjusting to life post-campaign. I
Yeah.
was, on this big high for about 18 months or so, and now the campaigns are over. So just adjusting.
But you're leading the charge to stop the steal over there at Smartmatic in Florida. We're going to get into all of that. I mean, like you, Laura, I'm feeling just so disappointed. Not in you. I mean, you put in a tremendous effort. You got almost 40% of the vote, which is just outstanding for a first-time politician who was totally deplatformed on every major social media platform. Talk to us a little bit about what it was like to run for Congress.
Well, it was a great experience, and I definitely don't regret running for Congress, despite the fact that it wasn't the outcome that I wanted. But I definitely got to see how the sausage was made. And while I was the Republican nominee for Congress in my district, I have to say that I'm incredibly disappointed in the Republican Party leadership. Just because, people think, oh, well, all you have to do is win your primary, right? All you have to do is be the official nominee and the party's going to support you. Well, that's not exactly how it works, right? And despite the fact that the president endorsed me, and despite the fact that the president voted for me, and tweeted in my support, the NRCC, they didn't support my race. The RNC National, they didn't give me any aid whatsoever. I didn't receive a single dime from the National Republican Party or the NRCC. And regardless of the financial aspect of it, what I would have preferred much more than money from the party, even though, I didn't get either of these things, is a simple statement or them rallying around the fact that my campaign was totally disenfranchised from the beginning because I was the only banned and deplatformed federal candidate for office, first time ever in U.S. history. So even when I won my primary, there was all this discussion about, oh, is Twitter going to let Laura have her account back? And I was prepared to run my race regardless of whether they gave it back. But this is full-blown election interference, right?
Yeah.
And the fact that all of these senators and congressmen are now complaining about what's happening, in this time post-election, where tweets are being censored and people are being banned for talking about voter fraud, and Twitter and Facebook are fact-checking people on their claims of voter fraud in real time. I just want to know, where were they? Where were these people? And Jason, when I lived in New York, you and I obviously would hang out. Sometimes you went with me to some of my video confrontations, right? Like one in Barnes and Noble with James Council.
Yeah.
And I believe you stopped by Twitter too when I handcuffed myself to Twitter.
Correct.
So I handcuffed myself to Twitter over 2 years ago to warn about this. Everything that I said was going to happen happened. I interrupted the congressional hearing, and word for word, I said, Jack Dorsey is trying to influence the election, to sway the election so that the Democrats can steal the election. That is why he is shadow banning and censoring conservatives, end quote. And you fast forward 2 years now, and everything I said was true.
Yeah.
And if Joe Biden is successful in stealing this election, it will be because of big tech election interference. Everyone wants to talk about mail-in ballot fraud, but the facilitator and the catalyst to all of this, what really allowed for this to happen in the middle of a pandemic, was big tech.
Yeah. And we heard them, I mean, this isn't the photo from the other day, but we do see Jack Dorsey here testifying.
Yes, transformed into bin Laden. So here he is, like regular beard. But, word has it that Jack Dorsey has converted to Islam.
Is that for real? Where did we hear that?
Well, I've been saying it for several years now. I mean, I was told when I was, doing my investigations in San Francisco into big tech that Jack Dorsey had converted to Islam. And that's why he has progressively been growing out this, very Jihad Jack looking beard.
I mean, it's amazing what they've done to you. I agree it's election interference, and they did speak about some things. I really should have listened to it again before our discussion here, because they spoke about things that really directly touched on your situation. It's unbelievable that they would remove your access to Twitter. And I'm sure you've tried other email addresses. It doesn't matter. As soon as they figure out it's you, they take you down.
Yeah, I didn't have another account, and the issue is complex because obviously I had filed litigation against these companies, but it's not just Facebook and Twitter, right? My campaign, when you want to talk about the interference that my campaign faced, I was able to get 40% of the vote in a district that people said was deep blue and unwinnable. I think 40% is really great. Yeah. That's just they're saying I got. I would love to see an actual audit of the votes and to see how many of those mail-in ballots that came in were fraudulent. Because when you look at the numbers, okay, and this has already been calculated in my race, if you were to eliminate mail-in voting, I would have won my election. Because if you look at in-person voting, I got 23% more people voting for me in person on election day than Lois Frankel, and early voting, I also beat her by 3%. And so the only way she was able to, beat me is by mail-in ballots. And we're seeing now the tremendous amounts of fraud that have been taken place in different swing states across the nation with regards to these mail-in ballots. Another aspect of this, besides the election interference by big tech and mail-in ballot fraud, is just a total freezing of my ability to communicate with constituents on the ground in the middle of a pandemic, right? We were not really able to door knock until the end part of my campaign, because in Palm Beach County, Florida, until Governor DeSantis, moved us into phase 3, campaigns were not supposed to be door knocking. And the issue was a lot of what it's like here in Florida. You've traveled to my district before, and you've seen for yourself how a lot of the communities here are gated. And if you want to go and speak to senior communities, you have to be invited by somebody who lives in the community. And then there were all these lockdowns, and a lot of the country clubs and the senior living centers and the retirement communities, where a large, fraction of my constituency lives, have policies in place that you're not allowed to have events or use the common areas during COVID. So that was a problem, because I was prepared to carry out a very robust ground game, right? Knocking doors, going and speaking to people one-on-one. And that was a key part of our election strategy. And COVID eliminated that. So then I was able to utilize my email list. And I figured to myself, well, I'll just email and I'll text voters and communicate with them that way. Well, here in Palm Beach County, right, Comcast Xfinity has a monopoly on the internet service provider. If you live in a condo association or you live in a homeowners association, which is like majority of the people here in Palm Beach County, you are required to use Comcast Xfinity, because Comcast has these contracts with the homeowners and condos associations. So, for example, when I moved to Palm Beach several years ago, I didn't want to get Comcast Xfinity, right? I had already had Comcast Xfinity before. I didn't want to use it. And I was told that I had no choice. So I am basically I have to pay for a company that that is oppressive and censors conservatives. And what do I mean by oppressive and censors conservatives? So Comcast, their management, if you look at their executive board and the makeup of the company, the head of Comcast actually resigned his position to go work as the head of communications for the Joe Biden presidential campaign. And the CEO of Comcast was the first high-dollar donor to host a multi-million-dollar fundraiser for Joe Biden when he announced that he was running for president. Comcast's regional office is located in West Palm Beach, Florida, which is where I ran for Congress, okay? there was a time when I remember I was sending out emails and text messages, and then all of a sudden people were telling me they couldn't access my link. Comcast started blocking my emails and my text messages to voters because they labeled it as dangerous content. So
Ridiculous.
anybody in my district who had Comcast who received my emails or text messages couldn't open them or view them because Comcast was blocking them. So upon further investigation, I found that Lois Frankel actually owns stock in Comcast, and Comcast has donated to Lois Frankel's campaign every single election cycle. So we're talking about Twitter interfering, Facebook interfering, okay, PayPal interfering, Instagram, which is Facebook, of course, and then Comcast. So in the middle of a pandemic, if you're being told to socially distance and not to knock doors and to use email and text message and social media, how do you do that as a candidate for Congress when even the telecommunication company is illegally censoring you?
You can't, obviously, and it's egregious what you're talking about, Laura. I mean,
and there's a video on the YouTube channel. So I know it sounds really fantastical what I'm saying right now, but you can actually go to my YouTube channel, and there's a video about Comcast Xfinity blocking. If you open up all the videos there, if you click on videos, you can see, if you scroll down, there was a video from a couple months ago, right there, election fraud. Oh, that's CBS. No, Unreal, Xfinity, Comcast. That's the one right now. Xfinity, Comcast. Yep.
You want to play this? Yeah, let's listen to it a bit. Let me get the sound going here.
So this was right before my primary, okay?
Yep.
In August. And they did this for me, all throughout the campaign.
Payment processors like PayPal and Venmo and even GoFundMe have banned me. I'm banned on Facebook and Twitter, Instagram, Uber, Lyft, Uber Eats. That's right, I can't even order food. The list goes on and on and on. Even Chase Bank has temporarily shut down my online access to my bank account. And as a candidate for Congress who has raised over $1 million and, like I said, is the front runner, my campaign is still being denied access to Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and PayPal. We are the only deplatformed campaign in the nation. Up until this point, my campaign has found ways to work around that. But today, a drastic escalation happened, and I'm making this video to document it so that you see that the censorship has moved from the big tech social media companies to the telecommunication companies themselves. We use text campaigns to reach out to people because, like I said, I can't use social media. And today, when I went to go approve my text campaign for today to make sure that there were no typos and that everything was set to go out to my supporters for my fundraising email, this is the message that came through on my phone. So just so that you understand what you're looking at, the message says potential threat direct detected. And this is the link that somebody would receive if they got my text message that said, hey, it's Laura Loomer. Matt Gaetz just endorsed my campaign. Check out what he said here. And then they would click on a landing page that was sent to them in a text message, and it would take them to the page. But the first thing that they see upon getting that is potential threat detected. So if you get something on your phone that says potential threat detected, you're likely not going to want to click on it because you're going to be concerned about what that threat is, right? So you can see. So now I just want to show you all how the telecommunications companies, and this is Xfinity, that we're on right now. You click on it, and it's supposed to go, you saw it's supposed to go to my campaign page.
Wait, Laura, so these are text messages you're sending from your iPhone, and I can see you've got it set to airplane mode, so you're using Wi-Fi, and you're saying that Comcast is able to know what you're texting to people?
No, so what happened is I showed that so that people could see that this was like the internet, right? Because I wanted to try it when I was just using cellular. And then I also wanted to try it on internet because I have cellular service, obviously. But if you disconnect the Wi-Fi, which is connected to Comcast Xfinity, I wanted people to see that this wasn't my cell phone. Like I have Verizon, right? So they could see for themselves that this was internet and not cellular. So they could say, oh, there's a glitch with your phone. That's why I put it on airplane mode. So people could see this was Comcast Xfinity. So Comcast Xfinity, when we send out campaign emails, it's a campaign blast, right? So you have an email list and then you blast it to the people on your email list. And then when they opt in for text messaging, you also send them text messages like the Trump campaign does, right? We've gotten 1 million of those text messages every single day. I'm sure everyone knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
how people send you text messages, is when you opt in to receive them. And so, because most of my constituency, like I said, has Comcast Xfinity because of this partnership with the condo and homeowners associations, everybody who's on Comcast would not get this. And then obviously there's people who are outside of Florida who subscribe to my list as well. So, for example, Bill, who is, he lives in Wisconsin and he runs the Loomer fan club page. Okay. You've probably seen the Loomer fan club online. He had Comcast, and he would send me screenshots all the way from Wisconsin that showed that my emails and text messages were not able to be opened on his phone. Okay. So people who had Comcast, specifically Comcast Xfinity, were not able to open my texts and my emails.
Unbelievable. And I can't get to the Loomer fan page because I've been kicked off Facebook too.
Well, and they shut it down anyway, so it's gone.
Geez.
But the thing is people will say, "Oh, well, it doesn't really matter because not everybody's on Comcast." Well, maybe outside of Palm Beach County, outside of District 21, right. And people would say to me, "Oh, well, I'm subscribed to your list and I get all your texts and emails." Right, but you're not necessarily on Comcast, are you? For the people who live in my constituency, most of them have Xfinity Comcast. So I was severely handicapped when it came to reaching people, not only with social media, but just with, emails and text messages. So when the leftists say, "Oh, deplatforming works, just go send emails or go send text messages. You're not entitled to a platform by being on Facebook and Twitter." Well, how are we supposed to do that when the telecommunication companies are violating the law? I mean, they could be shut down and have their license revoked for what they've done here. This is criminal. This is absolutely illegal. You are not allowed to just block somebody's ability to send a text message or an email because you don't like them.
Right.
And then when you the financial structure and how Lois Frankel owns stock in Comcast and how they donated to her, even Michelle Malkin did an expose on this. If you type it in on your end, you can type in Michelle Malkin, Laura Loomer, Comcast, and I'm sure the story would pop up, and you can see she talks about how the executive members of Comcast are all DNC operatives, donors to the Democrat Party, working within Joe Biden's presidential campaign, and as you know, they hate President Trump over at Comcast, and he calls them Comcast. He's been at war with Comcast for a long time.
Commicast.
Yeah.
Unbelievable, Laura. I mean, people are shocked in the comments here because I don't think they knew about this.
What's even more shocking is the fact that the night that I won my primary, I got a phone call from Ronna McDaniel, the chairwoman of the party. And she's like, "Oh, I was just calling you. This was an hour before the polls closed because everyone knew I was going to win anyway. "Oh, I'm just calling you to tell you how amazing you are and how you're a change agent for the Republican Party, and anything we can do to help you, let us know." Right. Well, she only made that phone call because one of my donors, who happened to be like one of President Trump's top donors, called her out when they were having, a private meeting with the president. And then what happened was she felt obligated to call me, right? Because she had promised this donor that she was going to basically call me
Right.
Because when I said, "Oh, great, okay, let me take Ronna McDaniel up on her offers," and she says she's so sincere about wanting to help me in my race. When I called her and said, "Hey, is the party going to get involved since I'm being blocked like this? Can you do something, or can the party issue a statement about how Comcast is preventing me from sending emails or text messages? Can the party issue a statement about how I'm literally the only candidate that's banned from using social media? Now that President Trump has endorsed me, what do you have to lose?" as the president always says. And she refused to do it. She ignored my messages. They never got back to me.
Wow.
So it was clearly just a way to appease a top donor who was very fond of me.
Unbelievable. Laura, everybody knows that this type of stuff goes on, but when you hear the details and the specific names, why would Ronna McDaniel not want you to succeed? You would have been a really strong change agent and a foil to the squad. I mean, here's the thing, Laura. I really think that the swamp was extremely afraid of you because they know that you're fearless. And the thing that I hate to say this because I don't want to upset you. The thing that really crushes me about this is that I just had such a strong sensation that you were going to win. And not only that, it was going to be the start of an epic. Wait, let me just finish. It was going to be the start of an epic political career, and your legacy would have been cemented in being the youngest woman ever to become a congressperson. And it would have been so difficult for anybody to squeak in under that. You're only 27, right?
Yeah, trust me, I'm upset too. It's very disappointing and, very distressing, especially because I worked very hard and I did everything that I was supposed to do. And I think I worked harder than probably any other congressional candidate in the country. I raised over $2 million on my own with no social media, no help from the party. I was totally sidelined. And the benchmarks and the goalposts kept on getting moved when I would meet them. So, for example, when I filed to run for Congress, people on the left and the right laughed, and they said, "Oh, ha ha ha! Like no one's gonna vote for Laura Loomer. No one's gonna donate to her campaign. She's not gonna raise a dime." And then when I outraised Lois Frankel every single quarter in a row, people were like, "Oh, wow, she's really a serious candidate, isn't she?" And then when I won my primary in double digits, it really woke people up. And then when President Trump endorsed me, people were like, "Wow, yeah, okay, now we have to take her seriously." But they never helped me. And so while all these other candidates who were performing underneath me and across the country, right, not raising as much money, really not even generating that much energy. I had dinner with Matt Gaetz one night, and he told me that one of the things that President Trump loved about my race and would always tell him when he would talk to him is he found my race to be the most exciting congressional race in the nation just because of how much energy we drew around it. So, there was no denying the energy and really just like the grassroots energy on the ground here in Florida for my campaign and President Trump's campaign. And my district was very unique in that it was President Trump's home district, right? So he was a Floridian. And all the polling, all the numbers, everything, all the data suggested that I was within striking distance of Lois Frankel. And like I said, if it wasn't for mail-in ballots, I would have won. Okay, I don't think a Republican has ever performed that well in Palm Beach County at the polls on election day. When you look at them being a first-time candidate or a Republican against the Democrat incumbent, 23% more people came out to vote for me on election day than they did for Lois Frankel. I mean, it's unbelievable. But I was robbed, and I don't think that I was given a fair chance. And I'm not a sore loser. But I do think that it was really awful what they did to my campaign and my volunteers and my, the constituents. They robbed the voters of District 21 their voice by blocking my text messages, which is illegal, blocking my emails, which is illegal, and denying me equal access. And even though we filed FEC complaints, the Republican Party refused to address it. I mean, I hired the best FEC attorney in the country. Okay, Charlie Spees. He provided counsel to the RNC. So I literally hired or retained the same legal counsel that the RNC had. Okay. Wow. And it still wouldn't help me even after he sent them my FEC complaint. So it's not like they didn't see it because he personally sent it to all of them. I personally sent it to all of them. The White House political team was sent all of my FEC complaints. It's just, nobody helped, they didn't speak out about it. But now everybody wants to complain while they fact checked all of the Republicans online about voter fraud. So,
this is an unfortunate name for a guy who works in Washington, D.C. Hopefully he doesn't fight. Yeah.
Very nice. He was
I'm just teasing.
He was very good to me though. And even when, this is a guy who runs in somewhat establishment circles, right? So he knows, all the key players in DC, and he gets published regularly. And even when he tried to publish articles about my campaign and the situation and just how obscene it was, he would get blackballed. They wouldn't even publish his articles. Breitbart was the only publication that even allowed him to publish an article about my campaign. Wow. And so there's also this blockade on my race in the media where publishers from media companies would refuse to publish information about me. I have friends who work at certain news publications, and I promised I wouldn't name them by name, But they had told me, hey, sorry, I wanted to do this story about you and the fact that your campaign's being censored. But my editor said no Laura Loomer stories at all, period, no debate. So
wow. Laura, this is scary. Listen, there's people out there who disagree with you and I. They don't like us. That's fine. Even if they hate us, what you're saying right now, people need to be very concerned about this, because the fact of the matter is I think people are waking up to the fact that perhaps this is an illusion, but we have this sense that this is a free country. We can travel where we want to go. We can vote. If you don't like the system, you can educate yourself and run for Congress and try to change. But what you're telling us is that in actual practice, none of that is true.
Yeah, none of it's true because the system's rigged and you don't get a fair shot. And the woman who ran my campaign, just an amazing woman, Karen Giorno, who was President Trump's Florida state director, and she's great. We became very good friends throughout this as well. You know, she had told me from the very beginning, all right, so because there were people who didn't think that I would be capable of even winning my primary or even, you know, molding myself into the image of a congressional candidate, just given my, you know, past controversies as, you know, a very in-your-face, aggressive, investigative guerrilla journalist and activist. And obviously I proved all of them wrong, because the thing is like the people don't want politicians. The people want everyday outsiders. That's why President Trump won, and that's why I won my primaries, because they want real people who they can relate.
Conservative firebrand.
So I was even told by Karen, okay, so if you do this and you raise this amount of money and you win your primary, you know, the RNC is going to come in, the NRCC is going to come in, and you're going to get the support. So I did everything to the T, right? And I wasn't even as controversial or necessarily as outspoken as I generally was throughout the duration of these last 18 months. And even though I exceeded all of these goalposts that were created for me, I didn't get any support. So I think I was one of the only, you know, candidates in the nation, if not the only one, to just be like totally blackballed and ignored, even though I raised more money than most first-time candidates. And what was hilarious too is the NRCC backed candidates who lost their primaries. So these are there's somebody at the NRCC who sits around and their job is to pick winners. Want to know a winner if they were staring him in the eye, let me tell you. Their job is to pick winners and the best candidates running for office in the country. And they were, you know, picking these women and, you know, just these like ridiculous candidates that had no chance whatsoever, who lost their primary. And then like after they lost their primaries, they gave them speaker slots at the RNC. So apparently if you lose your primary, you get a speaking slot at the RNC. But if you win your primary and you raise more money than most first-time candidates, and the president of the United States endorses you, and the president of the United States votes for you, you get blackballed. You know, so it's a total sham. People just need to know they're being scammed.
It's really terrible, Laura. Now, so you're raising a lot of really interesting points, and as we speak, you know, we had this press conference earlier today where Rudy Giuliani and Sidney Powell and several other members of the president's legal team got together and presented evidence of, I mean, really stunning evidence, mathematical evidence. They've got hundreds of affidavits sworn under penalty of perjury, statistical analysis of probability that really create a preponderance of evidence that indicates there were a lot of things done to cheat. A lot of people have been talking about this Dominion software systems. Of course, they deny that their machines were flipping votes and doing all that stuff. It's interesting to note that I just looked on this, you know, Florida Department of State Division of Elections website, and Dominion Voting Systems is a certified voting system for Florida. In 2016, they were using version 4.1. I don't know if they're still using it. The version at controversy is 5.5 of the Democracy Suite. We see they've got that up here. There's this election systems and software. I wanted to check some more of this because I know that Dominion Voting Systems was buying up some of the competitors, kind of consolidating. Have you looked into challenging the vote? I mean, is it too late? Have you conceded? Can you do kind of along the lines of what Trump is doing?
Dominion had been used in Palm Beach County in previous years when Susan Booker was, of course, the corrupt election supervisor of election here in Palm Beach County before she was replaced by Wendy Sartori-Link. And Dominion was used, and that's why there was so much controversy in Broward and Palm Beach County. Palm Beach County is now using the ES and S that is right there above Dominion. But Dominion, as you said, is still used throughout Florida. So there's various different softwares that are used. But regardless, I don't know if you saw the story that I published on my site 2 days ago. But Bill Gates actually is tied to this as well, because Microsoft, through their Defending Democracy program they created in 2018, which I'm sure you know all about, they actually established a software called Election Guard. And you can see you scroll down, just keep on scrolling down, and you can see that part right there. An official press release published by Microsoft on September 24th, 2019. Microsoft CEO said that Election Guard is accessible by design and will make voting more secure, verifiable, and efficient anywhere in its use in the United States or in democratic nations around the world. And then they announced that it was available on GitHub, right? Like open source, so people can contribute and whatnot. And then they said, as we previously announced, all major manufacturers of voting systems in the United States are working with us to explore ways to incorporate Election Guard into their systems, including, and they list all of them. And I highlighted Dominion Voting Systems and Smartmatic, which are the two at the center of the controversy right now. And so Election Guard has been implemented into all of these voting softwares. So the whole point of Election Guard, it was essentially created as a way to push toward a time where we have online voting. So the whole goal of this new technology is to eradicate in-person voting. And as you know, Bill Gates has a vested interest in people not voting at the polls, because he's been going around talking about how, supposedly how lethal coronavirus is and how dangerous it is. And he has invested over $300 million of his own money with his wife, Melinda, into COVID vaccinations. And as you know, we were told that we couldn't vote in person at the polls and that everyone needed to vote by mail because of COVID. And so it's just really interesting that the guy who's, directly at the center of COVID vaccination research and trying to, develop a COVID vaccine is also at the center of this election technology, which has been put onto all of our major voting systems here in the United States. And we know that Bill Gates is a mega donor to the Democrats, and he received the Presidential Medal of Freedom from Barack Obama when Joe Biden was president or vice president. And so he has a long-standing relationship with Joe Biden through his time with the Obama administration and all of the work that Bill and Melinda Gates did with the Obama administration. And so people don't seem to understand, how intertwined big tech is into all of this voter fraud that's happening. It's not just mail-in ballots. I think that the mail-in ballots really also are a smokescreen to this more sinister plot by big tech colluding together to censor all political dissent and facts about voter fraud and any conversation that counters claims about COVID being as lethal as people say it is, and any challenge to any vaccinations. And it just happens to be that the same people who are working on the mandatory vaccines and also influencing our elections are big tech.
It's unbelievable. This jackass can't even make Microsoft Word work on an iPad, and we want to have him inject DNA modifying vaccines into people and control the democracy in the country. I have no confidence in Bill Gates, Microsoft, any of their technology. It's just astounding. This is scary stuff that you're describing here, Laura, because there are still a lot of people who, friends of ours, people that we all work with and talk with and interact with, who consider themselves, I mean, they've been to college in many cases, they're educated, but they think all of this stuff is on the up and up.
I know. I was talking to my own family yesterday, and I said, I'm not going to take this vaccine, and I sent them the article. And, I have family members that work in the medical profession, and I was explaining to them how there's a lot of concern about potential tracking devices being implemented into vaccinations, and that there's going to be some type of registry of people who get the vaccines or people who had COVID, right? That's why they want you to use all these apps so that you can contact trace if you have COVID or not. I don't want to be on a database. I don't want to be told that I have to get a mandatory vaccination. I don't want to be tracked by the government. And when I mention this, they're like, oh, no, that's not necessarily going to happen. And like I said, you said, these are educated people who have degrees, who, work in the medical profession, or people who some of them even, consider themselves to be Trump supporters. So, it's a wake-up call. We need to wake people up and educate them about the dangers of these vaccines. And, regardless of what you may think about vaccines, another reason I don't want to take this vaccine is because I don't believe that enough time has passed to for
properly
people
test it.
To say, yeah, the clinical trials have been done and there aren't any serious adverse effects. I mean, there have been reports that, and when you look at vaccines that have been given for years, right, to children when, they get their vaccines before they go to school, there's tons of stories about vaccine injuries with kids getting autism or, people getting paralyzed, people getting disabilities, people dying from, getting the flu shot. And so I don't feel comfortable taking a COVID vaccine because, who knows what the lifelong adverse effects are going to be from taking this.
Yeah. A lot of people are concerned about President Trump and some statements that were made by, I forget the general's name the other day, who were talking about distributing this vaccine rapidly. The New York Times was telling us recently that Brazil halted this test of a Chinese vaccine. I think they were having some adverse effects. The thing that I'm really concerned about is that, everything you're saying, I agree with, Laura, is that we're talking about a new type of vaccine technology, this Moderna messenger RNA vaccine, which is literally going to interact with your cell's ability to recreate, to divide cells and mess with your DNA. They've never used this in any humans before. And how do we know what effects this will have on reproductive health, your offspring? Maybe they test it for a year and it seems great, but you don't see any results until you have a kid or something like that. Anything could happen.
First of all, China sent us this virus. And so why are we trying to enrich China and their economy even more when they have devastated global economies so that they can get rich off some vaccine that is probably, another form of biomedical warfare in its own self. So I don't trust China. I don't trust anything coming out of China. We have the Chinese virus, and now we have the Chinese vaccine. Neither of those things. So
the articles are written by Chinese people in the New York Times. We are in danger of being kicked off of YouTube for even talking about this because I think questioning vaccine safety, we're not questioning it, we're just referring to articles. But in the event that this show is terminated in an untimely fashion, people will be able to see it on Subscribestar and Patreon later. But it's crazy that we're living in a time where we can't even discuss these topics, we can't debate these topics. That is anti-scientific, and I share your concerns about this contact tracing, and it's already permeating every aspect of life. I mean, I get it when people work in hospitals and stuff, they've got to take these tests. I don't agree with it, but I understand it. There was an article just the other day here in New York City, a restaurant called City Winery has announced rapid on-site COVID testing where they're going to charge you $50 to poke your brain at the restaurant. I don't know if they have doctors there, but I don't really want medical attention from people working for tips. And this is crazy. I would never go to this restaurant, and I don't even want to go to a place. One restaurant I was trying to go to but left wanted me to sign a thing with my phone number and my email address so that they could just arbitrarily call me at any time and say, oh, somebody in the restaurant had COVID, now you have to be locked in your house.
Yeah, I call it medical Sharia. That's the term that I've coined for this, because I don't really see a difference between, forcing somebody to wear a mask and forcing somebody to wear a burqa. And that's basically what it is. I mean, the mask is the new burqa, okay? It's the new global symbol of tyranny. And that's what's happening. And they're trying to make it cool to be tracked, and cool to have your rights violated. I was driving home from this Smartmatic protest, and I was listening to the radio, and there was an advertisement with some, hip hop music behind it, where they were telling people to download this COVID tracing app so that you would get notified on your phone if you were near somebody who logged themselves as COVID positive. I mean, would anybody want that? Oh, well, you don't even need to download the app, because if you have an iPhone, Apple's doing it for you, right? So.
But you can turn that off, right? I have it switched off on mine.
But I don't know. Look, I mean, I've had instances before where I turn things off, like the location, and then it turns it back on.
Yeah.
So, I don't really think that you have any choice. Like once you allow these devices into your life, you pretty much you have no more choice, because they say you have a choice, but we all know what they are doing behind the scenes, collecting data. Using information to track people. I mean, if they've IP banned me, right? And this is something I've thought about before too. If they're not collecting all this data and you have an ability to turn off your location, well, how are they able to make it so that you can't even access a site on your phone, right? So you asked me before if I've created other accounts to get on these social media sites. Well, no, I have not. But if somebody was to send me a tweet, for example, on this phone, it's IP banned. So you generally could access tweets if you don't have a Twitter account, because you don't need to have a Twitter.
Just being not logged in and look at it on the internet, yeah.
For public accounts. But I can't even access Twitter on this phone because.
What about a VPN for the phone?
No, nothing works. I can't get on Facebook or Twitter on phone since I've been banned.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's scary, Laura, because you and Alex Jones and people who were really on the cutting edge, 4 or 5 years ago, and more, Milo, all these people have been basically just vanquished into digital obscurity. And I mean, look, it's effective. 40%. Even if you had all those things available to you, as a first-time politician, you've never run for anything before in your life, you're much younger than this entrenched politician who is the incumbent over there, to get 40% of the vote if you had no obstruction would be an amazing feat. You basically climbed up the mountain with a boulder on your back, no shoes, arrows being shot at you, rain, mud. Unbelievable. They're fearful of what you would have done without all this.
Well, just imagine what I would have been able to do. Exactly. That's 40% and not only just having all these obstacles, but I got 40% of the vote with the media when they were not ignoring me completely, because it's not like they really showed much interest in reporting on the race, despite the fact that it was the most watched race in the country. They were calling me a white supremacist in the newspaper every single day. So they were writing these awful stories about me, like trying to make it seem like I was some type of terrorist or white supremacist or racist. And even with people reading all of this information, I got 40% of the vote. So imagine if I would have had a fair shot and I wouldn't have been called a white supremacist. The DCCC, which is like the Democrat version of the NRCC, right?
Yeah.
They received a $100,000 donation from Lois Frankel. So she gave them $100,000 to do all the dirty work for her.
Wow.
Because the strategy was to not say my name. And so when reporters would ask her about me, she would say, "Oh, who is that woman? Oh, I don't know. I don't know what her name is. I just know about some lunatic band on social media." That's what she would say
Whoa.
about me. So
Can't you sue her?
she told the reporters that because I was banned on Twitter, I don't deserve to have a voice in society. And she said that she really said this. She literally said, because I am banned on Twitter, I don't deserve to be recognized as a candidate for office. Even when I won my primary, she said this. And so she wouldn't even say my name because according to Lois Frankel, if you're banned on Twitter, no, you don't deserve to have people say your name.
Lois Frankel is an idiot.
That's what she told reporters. If you're banned on Twitter, people shouldn't say your name.
Does Lois Frankel even know what Twitter is? She's one foot in the grave.
I really wish I was making this up, but she really said, if you're banned on Twitter, like Laura Loomer, people shouldn't say your name.
That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard. What has this woman ever done in Congress, Laura?
Nothing. She doesn't do anything. That's why she's called Lazy Lois. She hasn't done anything.
Unbelievable.
And she refused to debate me. So there was no debate.
She would have been creamed.
Oh, so going off with what I said, the DCCC received $100,000 from Lois Frankel, and they issued a statement saying that I was in the KKK, even though I'm Jewish. So they were going around telling people, and I would get these crazy letters and messages from people in the community and the district saying, "Oh, I'm not voting for you because you're an anti-Semite." Meanwhile, I'm, such an open Zionist and like so open about being pro-Israel, right? And it's just so funny to me because I spent my career exposing anti-Semitism and Jew hatred, but this is what they get away with. So they were going around saying that I was in the KKK and I was a white supremacist and I had no way to fight this because I was banned everywhere. And then when I tried sending emails or text messages to voters letting them know that it was a lie, Comcast blocked all my texts and my emails.
Unbelievable.
So there really isn't a fair shot anymore, especially if you're a conservative, and especially if Joe Biden pulls this off and he steals this election. I don't think Republicans are ever going to be able to have elections ever again because
I don't think we have elections now. We just have these, monetary races where people bribe each other and rig the results. You just said something, though, that's going to trigger half the audience. People on the internet freak out about this word Zionist. Now, when I had heard it before I got involved with Crowdsource the Truth, I always understood it to just mean somebody who supports Israel. A lot of people feel like it means that you're into Israel taking over the world. Can you clarify what you mean by saying you're a Zionist?
No, Zionism is just Jewish nationalism. When somebody says they're a Zionist, it means that they believe that Israel has a right to exist. And so I'm Jewish and I'm proud to be Jewish, and therefore, I call myself a Zionist. I think that Israel has a right to exist. I believe the Jewish people are entitled to a homeland. Just like I'm an American nationalist. So people here in the United States who call themselves nationalists, people who call themselves Zionists believe that Israel has a right to exist, and they support Jewish nationalism, which I do. Mm-hmm.
So what's next, Laura? Will you run again?
There's also a lot of Christian Zionists as well. So it doesn't necessarily. I think there's a lot of like negative connotations around the word because people don't understand it, and there has been, this effort to kind of portray Zionists as globalists when in reality Zionists are anti-globalist, right? So I would describe people like organizations such as the ADL as globalist organizations, and I would say that they are anti-Zionist because when you look at the ADL, which people have I think it's ironic they've called them a Zionist organization. They're far from it. They're not Zionist at all. In fact, they've condemned me, and they said that I don't deserve to be recognized as a Jew because of as a Zionist. Yeah, the ADL. So
that's crazy.
There's a big difference between Zionists and globalists, and the ADL is full of globalist Jews, and I oppose the ADL. I oppose globalism, and most Zionists do.
It's really well said, Laura. You know, one of the most impressive things about you is how intelligent you are and how well-spoken you are and how well-researched basically everything that you present is. I'm trying to get this article here. Haaretz spoke about the ADL slamming you in an ad using Holocaust imagery.
Like, they're a Jewish publication, but they're what I would call a globalist Jewish publication. And they attack me. And here I am. I'm a very pro-Israel. This is an Israeli publication, right? Here I am. I'm a very pro-Israel Jew, pro-Israel candidate that ran for office. And they're attacking me for an ad in which I was exposing anti-Semitism and the fact that Black Lives Matter is an anti-Jewish organization, right?
It's anti-American for sure.
I deserve to be. I was listed once as one of like the top 50 influential Jews in the world by the Jewish Forward, which is like the oldest Jewish publication, in the country. And the ADL said that I don't deserve to be recognized as an influential Jew because I called out the fact that Uber hired an Islamic terrorist who murdered 8 people with a car while driving for Uber. That was when we were together in New York City that day. Remember when I was at your place? And
but that guy. Oh, but it was. I mean, they didn't know he was going to do that when they hired him.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Did they? The CEO of Uber is a Muslim, and he's expressed a lot of anti-American and anti-Trump and pro-Islamic immigrant sentiment. And there's been multiple instances of ISIS terrorists working for Uber. So who knows? I mean, I thought that it was common sense not to hire somebody whose name literally translates from Arabic into English as Sword of Allah, like this guy who was an ISIS terrorist driving for Uber who killed these people. But I guess what's common sense for me isn't necessarily common sense for Uber's Muslim CEO.
It was interesting. At the Imran Awan trial, his totally incompetent and really objectionable lawyer, Chris Gowan, made what appeared to be a false claim. He certainly refused to back it up when I asked him to show evidence. He said that Imran Awan was driving for Uber.
Well, a lot of very concerning things happen with these rideshare companies, and that's why they banned me, because I was exposing it. So, and then when I posted that tweet that the ADL was condemning me for, I mean, just like President Trump had said after 9/11, when he saw Muslims like dancing in the street celebrating, and there were videos of Muslims celebrating when 9/11 happened, when this terrorist attack happened, and because I was with you that day when it happened.
Yeah, we were going somewhere, I remember.
The women in the hijabs were looking at the crime scene and they were laughing. They were laughing at the fact that an ISIS terrorist had just killed 8 people. So I saw what I saw, and I'm not going to apologize for what I saw. But apparently the ADL, they call themselves the Anti-Defamation League, but they spend their time defaming Jews, which is ironic for an organization that claims that they were founded, and they beg for donations so that they can fight against the defamation of Jews. But they spend their time advocating more for Islamic causes and bashing conservative Jews than really defending any Jew.
So it's really just a left-wing globalist organization, basically.
Yeah, that works hand in hand with the tech companies to censor people. So in my opinion, the ADL is actually perpetuating anti-Semitism, because as a so-called Jewish organization that likes to bill themselves as like one of the leading Jewish organizations in the country, they're making people despise Jewish people because they're censoring people, and they're working with the tech companies to shut down free speech. And so I would actually argue that people like Jonathan Greenblatt and the ADL have drastically increased anti-Semitism in this country and around the world due to their war on free speech with the tech companies.
It's interesting. There was a Orthodox Jewish viewer of Crowdsource the Truth who got into a YouTube comment battle with me because I had said, if people want free speech, Hitler should have a YouTube channel. If you want free speech, the KKK, Hitler, whoever, would have free speech. You can't silence people because you don't like what they're saying. That's basically what they're doing to you. People on the left don't like what you have to say, so they think it's okay to shut you up. This Orthodox guy said, oh, no, you can't let Hitler have free speech. And the point of the matter is free speech is everybody gets free speech, and you're free to say things that other people don't like.
The thing is what people don't understand is there's no such thing as hate speech in this country. And so where we draw the line, because I get asked this question too, well, where do you draw the line? Where I draw the line is the incitement to violence and the promotion of terrorist activity. Right. But for Twitter and Facebook and all these companies, they have no problem with the promotion of violence and terrorist activity because they allow for terrorist organizations like Hamas, Hezbollah, Muslim Brotherhood, ISIS, Antifa, Black Lives Matter. They all have accounts. They're all spreading terrorist activity and recruiting and promoting violence online. And they don't shut that down. But what they do is they say that people like myself and others are guilty of hate speech. But we don't have hate speech here in the United States. It's a made up term. I mean, this has already gone to the Supreme Court. But they've been able to brainwash people so much with their fictitious terms of service. And as a result, there's, a large portion of the population, including many in the media, who really think that we have hate speech in this country, and we just don't. There's no such thing. It's
so
sad.
Laura, how do you feel that Antifa has multiple accounts all over Twitter? This is not the one necessarily, but they're scheduling protests that sometimes erupt into, violent riots. They're allowed to stay on there. You're not.
Yeah, it's absurd, and I mentioned this in my lawsuit when I first sued Twitter because, I was banned at the request of an Islamic terrorist organization. So,
was that CARE?
Yeah, CARE. And it's a problem. It's a big problem at Twitter and Facebook. Yeah. It's a big problem at all of these companies, actually.
We're just about out of time, Laura, but I don't think we got to answer this question. What do you plan to do next? Will you run for Congress again?
Well, it's been 2 weeks since the election. And I'm still trying to process everything and decompress, but we'll see. I don't know. Never say never. But things need to change. It's hard to run for office when you are running against a Democrat. You're running against the Democrats, right? But then you basically are running against your own party in a sense, right? Because we spent more money in my campaign combating attacks from the right than we did from the left. So there really isn't a lot of, and what I mean by that is that there are people on the right who didn't want to see me succeed. And so they were trying to sabotage my race every chance they got. And so who needs Democrats when you have rhinos in your way? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Who needs Democrats when you have rhinos doing their dirty work for them? And so also, too, it was a wake-up call because I saw firsthand how, wow, even when you raise the money and you get the endorsement from the president and you win your race, they're still not going to do anything to address the tech censorship. So they don't really seem too concerned about election integrity or election fairness, but we'll see. I think the people are waking up, but in the meantime, I'm going to be continuing my investigative journalism and publishing stories on my site, Loomer.com. And it's all grassroots, independently funded by, people like your viewers and everyday Americans or people around the world who are just interested in hard-hitting investigative journalism. And so if people want to support my work, they can do that at my site, Loomer.com, and they can also sign up to receive my emails. And if you're interested in learning about the kind of content that I'm going to be reporting on, you can read the most recent story about Bill Gates and Microsoft, an election guard that I just posted.
And it's, PayPal has banned you, Chase Bank has banned you. So people who are into cryptocurrency, Bitcoin is a good option. What would you say is the best way for people to support Loomer.com and your investigative journalism?
If you click on the donate link, it takes you to a site through Rev where you can donate. You can also send checks to the address below, or you can donate cryptocurrency as well. That's my Bitcoin code. So.
Yeah, and people could scan it even right off of the video right here. It's a QR code, so that's great. People who want to support Laura.
And also, if you have any tips for, stories, or if you have information on, something that you think needs to be exposed, you can also email me, laura@loomer.com, and my contact information is on the site there as well.
Laura, it's great to see you, and I'm glad you're staying positive.
I'm on Parler. Everybody's getting on Parler.
Yes, Parler. I meant to show that. Right, we've got Laura on Parler. Twitter is out, and Parler is in. So people can get on there and follow Laura. She's still at Laura Loomer, and she's got a really good following. I mean, 757,000 people on Parler is like 1 billion on Twitter.
Yeah.
So congratulations on that, Laura. I know they're not going to be able to keep you down. Laura Loomer is like a force of nature, and you've been through the eye of the storm, so you survived, and what doesn't kill you makes you stronger, and you started out crazy strong. So congratulations, Laura. Even though you didn't make it to Congress, the achievement was outstanding. Your tenacity is amazing. And I know you're going to do some amazing stuff. So it's good to have you back on the...
Yeah, I appreciate it. And who knows, maybe Congress is too small for me. You never know.
Exactly.
Maybe I'm something bigger.
I like it.
There's a lot of U.S. presidents who lost their first elections too.
Absolutely, Laura. Well, it's wonderful to have you back on the show, and it's been great speaking to you tonight. I want to thank everybody who sponsors this program on subscribestar.com/crowdsource the truth and patreon.com/crowdsource the truth. I'll see everybody tomorrow. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.